What's up guys, it is StarFlorge here. Today I'm bringing you the brand new video, What's OP and When. Now a lot of you have been wondering what is kind of the most powerful build, and so I thought for mages today I'd split their specializations, Rift Mage, Knight, Enchanter and Necromancer, into a tier list of God to tier 2. Now many of you will know what tier lists are already, but if you don't, God tier is the best, exceptional powerhouses that are just basically OP in the game. Tier 1 is really good powerhouses that bring a lot to the table but just aren't as good as God. And then Tier 2 are just balanced options within the game. So I've also split this into 3 points: early game, mid game and late game. Early game, I am saying you have spent 3 points in your specialization. Mid game, you have spent 7 points in total, and then end game where you have spent 10 points and you have everything. So let's just get straight into this and start off with the early game, where I'm putting Necromancer into tier 2. I know it is quite frustrating, seeing as I am a Necromancer myself and love them, but I must say their early game is awful. All you get is a horror and a passive. That is it. The horror can be used really well in a lot of fights, but you can get the same amount of CC just by going into fire and then making Necromancer not really useful, and just having a fear and nothing else I find is weak. Then we're going into Knight Enchanter, which is tier 1, and the reason I've put it here is because they have the core ability to what Knight Enchanters have, and are kind of already nearly at their max potential. You have Spirit Blade, so you have a constant supply of damage. You have the damage against barrier and guard, and you can get the Fade Cloak to give you a survivability or combat clarity to be able to spam more abilities because you can regenerate mana. And I think this is kind of where Knight Enchanters are nearly already at their peak, because they are basically just revolve around Spirit Blade, and the main thing is not them doing insane amount of damage, it is mainly about them surviving, and they have a bit of survivability now, and we'll get a bit more later, but this is the kind of max damage they will get already, and that's why they're in tier 1. And then we're going over to Rift Mage, which is in the God tier, and the reason is because you have Stone Fist and Veil Strike level 1, which is insane. You have Stone Fist, which does a ton of damage and sends them back, giving you some CC, as well as Veil Strike being some insane CC too. With this combo and basically any of the other abilities you would have got in any of the previous specializations, you can already be a CC god and deal a ton of damage, because at level 3 it doesn't matter whether you take a Stone Fist upgrade or a Veil Strike upgrade, they are both amazing, granting you weakness bonuses or some cooldown reduction on the Veil Strike, but generally your weakness bonuses, that's what I always do, and with one of them being a weakness bonus as well as just having the other spell is already absolutely amazing, and you will already be 1 a CC god and 2 being able to deal a lot of damage with Stone Fist. Then we are moving on to the mid game, where Necromancer has shot up into God tier, and the reason is because at this point you can just go straight down to Walking Bomb, and that really shoots its potential upwards, as well as making horror better at the same time. So at mid-game Necromancers, you have Simulacrum giving you a death bonus, which nothing else gives you, so you have that potential to be actually stronger when you die. You have Walking Bomb, which does a crazy amount of dot damage, along with fire, because they stack, giving you a potential of 400% weapon damage per second ticking, which is just crazy. And then Walking Bomb as well, having that explosion factor, giving even more dots and just even more damage. And at mid game, this is already insane, as well as making horror much better, because you have the damage potential. The fact you've got horror, as well as making it so they don't come unpanicked until below 25%, gives you some even more well needed CC and especially in the mid game, this comes in extremely useful. Knight Enchanters are still in tier 1 because now they have reached what I think is kind of their max potential. They have the opportunity now to become kind of unkillable because you get barrier now of what you have dealt, but they are doing no more or no less damage. Even with the Fade Cloak upgrade, it's not a huge boost. You're only getting 1k damage, whereas Walking Bomb will give you double that just in the dot. And this is why I've put it in tier 1, because Knight Enchanter, again, this is now its best point, I find, and then it doesn't get any better, and I find it doesn't get any worse. It is just good. Lastly, we're going on to the Rift Mage, which is God tier still, as it always will be. By now, you can either go down all the way to the Pull of the Abyss and keep the first 2 spells, or even being God tier, you can just go into the passives and not take Pull of the Abyss, and this will still make you God tier because of how strong their passives are and synergize with Stonefist and Veil Strike, and then how good Stonefist and Veil Strike actually are. When you put it into context, you think the Necromancers have some nice CC on the Horror, panicking them for 3 seconds and then giving some crazy damage with the Walking Bomb, but then Stonefist deals quite a nice amount of damage with a tiny cooldown, which lets you get in roughly the same amount of damage in the same time, even though it's not the same damage straight up. And it gives you a huge amount of CC, as well as Veil Strike giving you a ton of CC, and then both of them weakening the enemies with all of your passives, bonusing weakened enemies, not bonusing the enemies, bonusing you due to them being weakened, is absolutely insane. And Rift Mage, for me, it's always at the moment God tier. It is the best. Lastly, we are going to the end game of the Mage. So we're going back to Necromancer, which has gone back but not too far down to tier 1, and the reason is this is because I find, a bit like what I said with Knight Enchanter, is that the mid game of the Necromancer is actually the best point I find. You can obviously at the end go all the way down into Spirit Mark, but I just find whenever I've done builds, I never actually go that far, and so basically my specialization, even when I'm level 27 or whatever, it's always the mid game. Then we are going into Knight Enchanter again, and I've actually put this down further into the tier 2. Knight Enchanter, they hit their best point in the mid game, and now compared to the spike of Rift Mage, they have gone down, and that is what I'm talking about. At end game, Rift Mage gets so powerful, everything else needs to get knocked down, and that leads us lastly to the Rift Mage, which is God tier once again, and so God tier it has knocked the others down. And what I mean by this is because tier lists work on, you know, God tier being the most powerful thing in the game, tier 1 being an extreme powerhouse, and then tier 2 just being kind of, it's just okay. And the reason Rift Mage is God tier and nothing else like Necromancer stays in God tier is because of just how powerful Rift Mage is. So finally, in the Rift Mage, you have got everything. You've got the Pull of the Abyss with the upgrade, which is absolutely insane, with all of the passives and the spells and their upgrades. This turns you into a damage CC god. The passives are amazing. You get mana recovery, you get duration bonus, damage bonus, and also you're making them worse because they get damage reduction. Overall, it is just the god specialization, and I think until they bother patching it, if they ever will, Rift Mage is the god tier and will stay there. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any bad thoughts about this video, put it below. I like to actually know what sometimes I have done wrong, because obviously then I can learn, improve, and make better videos for you guys. But if you just enjoyed it, leave a like, comment below, and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.